my sister stole my baby name. So, I stole their baby's college fund. The notification from First National Bank lit up my phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, confirming what I'd just done. Transfer complete. $47,000 moved from the Grandma Rose Educational Trust for Madison Clark's children to a new account I'd opened that afternoon. My hands were still shaking as I screenshot the confirmation, my heart hammering so loud I was sure my husband Jake would wake up. But he was dead asleep next to me, completely unaware that his wife had just committed what was probably the most vindictive act of her entire life. I should feel guilty. I should feel sick to my stomach. Instead, all I felt was a cold, bitter satisfaction spreading through my chest like ice water. My sister Madison had given birth 3 days ago to a healthy baby girl. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of pure betrayal, because she'd named her Aria Rose Clark. My name. The name I'd been planning since I was 12 years old, scribbling it in diary margins and whispering it to myself during family dinners. Aria, after the beautiful arias in the operas Mom used to play when she was cooking Sunday dinner. Rose, after Grandma Rose, who raised us both after Dad left and Mom started working double shifts. Madison knew. God, she absolutely knew. I'd told everyone about Aria when I was 15 and going through my dramatic phase, announcing at Thanksgiving dinner that when I had a daughter someday, that's what I'd name her. I'd mentioned it again at Madison's wedding 4 years ago when she caught the bouquet and teased me about being next. I brought it up literally 2 months ago when Jake and I started trying for our first baby, telling Madison over coffee that we were finally ready and joking about how Aria Rose had been reserved for over a decade. She'd smiled. Actually smiled and said, "That's such a beautiful name, Sarah. Your daughter will be so lucky." Lying bitch. The worst part? Madison's pregnancy wasn't even planned. She called me sobbing in January, panicking because she and Tom had been careful but apparently not careful enough. I was the one who talked her through the fear, who drove her to her first appointment when Tom was traveling for work, who helped her pick out nursery colors and held her hair back during morning sickness. I was there for everything. And she repaid me by stealing the one thing she knew I'd been dreaming about since we were kids. When Tom posted the Instagram announcement on Sunday, a perfect little pink bundle with the caption "Welcome to the world, Aria Rose Clark. Mom and baby are healthy and so in love." I'd stared at my phone for 20 minutes straight. Jake found me sitting on our bathroom floor, just holding the phone and crying. Maybe it's a coincidence, he'd said weakly, but we both knew better. Madison doesn't believe in coincidences. She believes in getting what she wants, when she wants it, and somehow she decided she wanted my daughter's name for her own kid. The thing is, I wouldn't have minded if she'd asked. If she'd called and said, "Sarah, I know you've always loved that name, but it's speaking to us too. Would you be okay if we used it?" I would have said yes. It would have stung, but I would have understood. We could have shared it, made it a family thing, found some way to make it work. But she didn't ask. She just took it, like she's taken everything else her whole life, the lead in our high school musical when we both auditioned, the full scholarship to state that I wanted, even my college boyfriend who suddenly decided he preferred older women with more life experience. Now she'd taken this too. Well, two could play that game. I discovered the trust account by complete accident 3 weeks ago when Grandma Rose asked me to help her organize her financial documents for her lawyer. She's 86 now and getting forgetful, mixing up passwords and losing important papers in stacks of magazines and grocery coupons. "Just help me make sense of all this banking nonsense, sweetheart," she'd said, handing me a shoebox full of statements and login information written on scraps of paper in her shaky handwriting. These computers make everything so complicated. That's when I found it, the educational trust she'd set up in 2019, with Madison listed as the primary beneficiary for any children she might have. $50,000, carefully saved from Grandma's pension and the sale of Grandpa's classic car collection, meant to give Madison's future kids the college opportunities we never had. The account information was right there on a post-it note stuck to a bank statement, username Madison Grandkids 47, password Aria Rose 2024. Even then, 3 weeks before my niece was born, Grandma somehow knew what Madison was planning to name her baby. They discussed it. Planned it. Probably laughed about how I'd react when I found out my precious name had been given to someone else's child. The password was the final insult. Madison hadn't just stolen my name, she'd been flaunting it in financial documents for months. What really sent me over the edge was the conversation I overheard yesterday at the hospital. I'd gone to visit, bringing the stupid congratulatory flowers and newborn outfits I bought before I knew about the name betrayal, trying to be the bigger person. Jake kept saying family was more important than a name, that I needed to process my feelings and move on. I was coming back from the bathroom when I heard Madison talking to our cousin Emma in the hospital room. "I know Sarah's upset," Madison was saying, her voice carrying that fake concerned tone she uses when she wants to sound sympathetic. "But honestly, she needs to grow up. It's just a name. It's not like she has dibs on every word in the dictionary." "But didn't she tell everyone years ago that she wanted to use Aria?" Emma asked. Madison laughed, actually laughed. "Emma, she was 15 when she said that. People change their minds about things they want when they're teenagers. I mean, she also wanted to marry that guy from her chemistry class and become a professional dancer. Should I check with her before I take a chemistry class or go dancing?" "That seems different though." "Look," Madison interrupted, "Tom and I heard the name and fell in love with it. We didn't realize Sarah was still hung up on some childhood fantasy. If she'd actually been pregnant, or even engaged when she first mentioned it, maybe things would be different. But she can't just call eternal dibs on a name and expect the whole family to tiptoe around her forever. Childhood fantasy. That's what 13 years of dreaming about my future daughter had been reduced to, a childhood fantasy that Madison felt perfectly entitled to claim for herself. I'd left the hospital without saying goodbye, drove straight to the bank, and opened a new account called Future Clark Children Education Fund with myself as the sole beneficiary. The banker, Mrs. Peterson, was incredibly helpful in explaining how trust transfers work, especially when you have all the proper account information and security details. "What a generous grandmother," she'd said as she processed the paperwork. "Education is such a wonderful gift to give the next generation." I'd smiled and agreed completely. Now, lying in bed with the transfer confirmation glowing on my phone screen, I finally felt like the universe had balanced itself out. Madison had taken something precious from me, so I'd taken something precious from her. The next morning brought the kind of regret that starts in your stomach and spreads outward like poison. I woke up at 6:23 a.m. to 17 missed calls from Madison and a text from Mom that just said call me now. Jake was already in the shower, humming some song from the radio, completely oblivious to the nuclear bomb I detonated while he slept. I'd managed to slip back into bed and delete the banking app from my phone before he stirred, covering my tracks like some kind of criminal mastermind. Which, I guess, is exactly what I was now. My phone rang again, Madison's contact photo filling the screen, that selfie of us from last Christmas where we're both laughing at something Tom said. We looked so happy. So normal. Like sisters who actually loved each other instead of whatever twisted dynamic we devolved into. I let it go to voicemail. Then immediately played the voicemail, because I'm apparently a glutton for punishment. Sarah, what the fuck did you do? Madison's voice was raw, like she'd been crying or screaming or both. Grandma called at 6 in the morning asking why the college fund was empty. 6 a.m., Sarah. She was sobbing so hard I couldn't understand her at first. She thinks someone hacked her account, and I had to explain that no, someone we trusted just decided to steal from an 86-year-old woman who's done nothing but love us our entire lives. The message cut off, then immediately another one started. And before you try to justify this insanity, yes, I know it was you. The bank called it a suspicious transfer and gave Grandma some of the details. An account opened yesterday by Sarah Clark for future Clark children. Real fucking subtle. Call me back right now or I'm driving over there, and trust me, you don't want me showing up at your door 3 days postpartum and running on zero sleep. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from adrenaline. It was from the slowly dawning realization that I'd made a catastrophic mistake. In my rage over the name, I'd completely forgotten that this wasn't just Madison's money I'd taken, it was Grandma Rose's gift, her legacy, her way of making sure her great-grandchildren had opportunities she never did. Grandma Rose, who used to slip me $20 bills for something special, just between us girls. Who taught me how to make her famous apple pie and let me paint her fingernails electric blue when I was 8. Who worked double shifts at the diner for 40 years and still managed to save enough money to give her family a better future. I'd stolen from Grandma Rose. The bathroom door opened and Jake emerged in a cloud of steam, towel around his waist, completely unprepared for the shitstorm about to rain down on our quiet Tuesday morning. Morning, babe, he said, leaning down to kiss my forehead. You're up early. Everything okay? Before I could figure out how to answer that loaded question, our doorbell rang. Then rang again. Then someone started pounding on the door like they were trying to break it down. Sarah. Open the goddamn door. Madison's voice carried through our entire house, probably waking up half the neighborhood. Jake's eyes went wide. What the hell is going on? He whispered. The pounding continued, accompanied by what sounded like Tom trying to calm Madison down and failing spectacularly. Our next-door neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez was probably already composing her strongly worded email to the HOA about noise violations. Sarah Elizabeth Clark, I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway and the lights are on. We're not leaving until you explain why you stole $50,000 from our grandmother. Jake's face went completely white. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before, which, honestly, was probably accurate. The woman who'd gone to sleep next to him last night and the woman sitting in front of him now were two completely different people. Please tell me you didn't actually steal money from your grandmother, he said quietly. Outside, Madison was still yelling, her voice getting more hysterical with each passing second. I could hear baby Arya crying now too. She brought the baby. She brought my Arya to our house while having a complete breakdown on our front porch. I looked at my husband, my phone full of furious voicemails, and the front door that wouldn't hold back my sister's rage much longer. I can explain, I whispered, knowing there was no explanation in the world that would make this okay. Jake didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there dripping on our hardwood floor while Madison continued her assault on our front door. Finally, he pulled on yesterday's jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, his movements sharp and angry. Get dressed, he said without looking at me. We're dealing with this now. I threw on the first clothes I could find, ironically, the bridesmaid dress from Madison's wedding that I'd been using as a nightgown, and followed Jake downstairs. Through the peephole, I could see Madison clutching baby Arya against her chest, still in what looked like pajamas and a hospital bracelet. Tom stood behind her, looking exhausted and defeated. Jake opened the door before I could stop him. Madison, I'm sorry, but you can't, he started. Don't. Madison pushed past him into our entryway, scanning the room until her eyes landed on me. Don't you dare apologize for her. Do you know what she did, Jake? Do you have any idea what your wife is capable of? The baby was crying harder now, probably picking up on her mother's stress. Madison bounced her awkwardly, clearly still learning how to navigate new motherhood while having a complete emotional breakdown. Sarah told me, Jake lied smoothly. About the account. We're going to figure this out. I stared at him. He was protecting me, buying me time I didn't deserve. Madison caught the look between us and her expression shifted from fury to something worse, betrayal so deep it made her voice crack. You didn't tell him anything, did you? She turned to Jake. She stole $50,000 from our 86-year-old grandmother because I named my baby Arya. That's it. That's the entire reason your wife decided to become a criminal. Tom stepped forward, looking uncomfortable. Madison, maybe we should. No. She whirled on him. I'm done being reasonable. I'm done pretending this is some kind of misunderstanding. Sarah took money that Grandma Rose saved for years to help our children go to college. Money she scraped together from her pension after Grandpa died. Money she earmarked specifically for Arya's future. The way Madison said the name, my name, made something snap inside my chest. Don't, I said, my voice coming out louder than I intended. Don't you dare act like you're the victim here. You knew exactly what you were doing when you chose that name. Oh my God. Madison laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that meant she was about to completely lose it. You actually think stealing from our grandmother is justified because I used a name you liked 13 years ago? It wasn't just a name I liked. I was shouting now, months of bottled rage finally exploding. It was my name. I told everyone. I planned everything. I picked out middle names and wrote it in my diary and doodled it on notebooks, and you knew that. You were 15, Sarah. 15. You also wanted to name your first son Legolas because you were obsessed with Lord of the Rings. Should I check with you before I watch those movies? Jake stepped between us. Both of you need to calm down before the neighbors call the police. Maybe they should call the police, Madison said, her voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen here. Because what Sarah did isn't just wrong, it's illegal. Grandma Rose is already talking about calling the bank to report fraud. My stomach dropped. She wouldn't. She's confused and scared, Sarah. She doesn't understand how someone got into her account. She keeps asking if she did something wrong, if she forgot giving someone permission. I had to sit there and watch our grandmother blame herself for something you did out of spite. Tom cleared his throat. The bank said they could reverse the transfer if it was done within 72 hours and both parties agree. But after that, it gets complicated. Legal complicated. Madison shifted the baby to her other arm, and I caught a glimpse of tiny fingers and dark hair peeking out from the pink blanket. My throat tightened. This was supposed to be a happy time, new baby, new life, new possibilities. Instead, I turned it into a war zone. I'll transfer it back, I whispered. When? Madison demanded. Today. This morning. Right now. All of it? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Madison stared at me for a long moment, then looked down at her daughter, at Arya Rose, who was finally starting to settle down. This doesn't fix anything, Sarah. This doesn't make us okay. I was about to respond when my phone rang. The caller ID made my blood freeze, Grandma Rose. I have to take this, I mumbled, stepping into the kitchen. Madison followed, still clutching baby Arya, with Jake and Tom trailing behind like reluctant witnesses to a car crash. I answered on the fourth ring. Hi, Grandma. Sarah, sweetheart? Her voice was thin and confused, the way it got when she was having one of her foggy days. I'm so sorry to bother you, but something very strange has happened with my bank account. The one I set up for Madison's children? My heart hammered against my ribs. What happened, Grandma? Well, I got a call this morning saying there was unusual activity. The nice young man said someone transferred all the money, $50,000, Sarah. Can you imagine? He said it went to an account for future Clark children, and I don't remember opening another account. Did I do something wrong? Madison was watching me with laser focus, her jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching. The baby made a soft sound, and Madison automatically started swaying, even while glaring daggers at me. Grandma, you didn't do anything wrong, I said carefully. There was just a misunderstanding with the bank. Oh, thank goodness. I was so worried. You know how confused I get with all these computer things. But the strangest part is, when I called Madison to ask about it, she got very upset. She wouldn't really explain what happened, just said it would be fixed soon. Do you know anything about this mix-up? I looked at my sister, who was mouthing something that looked distinctly like tell her the truth, but with significantly more profanity. It's complicated, Grandma. But yes, we're going to get it sorted out today. Well, that's a relief. You girls are so good to me, helping with all this financial nonsense. She paused, and I could hear her shuffling papers. You know, Sarah, I was thinking, when you and Jake have children, I should set up something similar for them. It's only fair, both my granddaughter's children having the same opportunities. The guilt hit me like a physical punch. She wanted to give my future children their own college fund, and here I was stealing from the one she'd already created. That's very generous, Grandma, but you don't need to. Nonsense. I already talked to my lawyer about it last week. $50,000 for your little ones too, when they come along. I'm hoping to have the paperwork ready soon. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Between you and me, I'm hoping for a little girl first. Madison's Arya Rose is just beautiful, such a lovely name, don't you think? I closed my eyes. Yes. It's beautiful. I can't wait to meet your daughter someday, Sarah. I have a feeling she'll be just as special as little Arya. After I hung up, the kitchen fell into silence so complete I could hear the refrigerator humming and Mrs. Rodriguez's dog barking 3 houses down. She's setting up a fund for your kids too, Madison said finally. It wasn't a question. I nodded, unable to speak around the knot in my throat. $50,000. The same amount you just stole from my daughter. I'm going to transfer it back, I whispered. I said I would. You stole from a woman who was literally planning to give you the exact same gift. Madison's voice was deadly quiet now, which was somehow worse than the yelling. She's 86 years old, Sarah. She won't be around forever to set up college funds and spoil great-grandchildren. And you just made her think she was losing her mind. Jake finally spoke up. We need to go to the bank. Now. All of us. Tom checked his watch. They open at 9. It's 8:47. Then we wait in the parking lot, Jake said firmly. This gets fixed today, before it gets any worse. But as I looked at my sister holding the baby who should have been named something else, anything else, I had the sinking feeling that some things couldn't be fixed with bank transfers and apologies. Some betrayals cut too deep for healing. The bank parking lot at 8:47 a.m. was a special kind of purgatory, empty except for our 2 cars and the security guard's pickup truck, with all of us sitting in awkward silence while Madison tried to breastfeed in Tom's passenger seat and Jake stared at our windshield like he'd never seen me before. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Madison told me everything. We're driving up from Phoenix. Don't do anything else stupid before we get there. Perfect. Now my parents were involved. Dad was probably already composing one of his disappointed lectures about family loyalty and making better choices, while Mom would want to have a feeling circle where everyone shared their emotions until we magically forgave each other. At exactly 9 o'clock, Mrs. Peterson unlocked the bank doors. She smiled and waved when she saw me approaching with what must have looked like a small army, my husband, my sister carrying a newborn, and Tom trailing behind us looking like he'd rather be literally anywhere else. Mrs. Clark. Back so soon? How can I help you today? Madison stepped forward before I could speak. We need to reverse the transfer my sister made yesterday. The $50,000 from the Rose Educational Trust. Mrs. Peterson's professional smile flickered slightly. Oh. I see. Is there a problem with the transfer? You could say that, Madison said dryly. The next 30 minutes were a masterclass in bureaucratic humiliation. We sat in Mrs. Peterson's cramped office while she pulled up account records and made phone calls to supervisors, asking questions like, was the original account holder aware of this transaction, and do we have documentation of permission from the trust administrator? The answer to both, obviously, was no. The good news, Mrs. Peterson said finally, is that since it's been less than 24 hours, we can absolutely reverse this transfer. The challenging news is that there are some irregularities we need to address. My stomach dropped. What kind of irregularities? Well, the account credentials used for the original transfer. The username and password weren't technically assigned to you, Mrs. Clark. They belong to Mrs. Rose Patterson, and our records show you're not an authorized user on that account. Madison shot me a look that could have melted steel. What exactly does that mean? Mrs. Peterson looked deeply uncomfortable. It means the transfer was made using credentials that weren't properly assigned to the person making the transaction. That's technically considered unauthorized access. Fraud, Jake said quietly. She's saying it's fraud. I prefer unauthorized access, Mrs. Peterson said quickly. These family situations can be very complicated, and intent matters a great deal. But yes, technically, accessing someone else's account without permission, even family, falls under our fraud prevention protocols. Tom leaned forward. What are our options here? If Mrs. Patterson, the grandmother, is willing to confirm that this was a family misunderstanding rather than malicious fraud, and if Mrs. Sarah Clark agrees to reverse the transfer immediately, we can treat this as an internal family matter. No authorities need to be involved. The relief was so intense I nearly started crying right there in Mrs. Peterson's office. Then she continued. However, given the nature of the account access, we would need to close both the original trust and the new account Mrs. Clark opened. For security purposes, Mrs. Patterson would need to establish a new trust through our estate planning department, with proper authorization protocols. Madison's face went white. Close the account? But the money. The money would be returned to Mrs. Patterson's primary checking account while she sets up new arrangements. It's just a precaution, but it's required when we've had unauthorized access. I watched my sister calculate what this meant. Grandma Rose, who got confused by online banking on good days, would have to navigate estate planning lawyers and new account setups and complicated authorization forms. At 86. Because of what I'd done. How long does that process take? Tom asked. Mrs. Peterson consulted her computer screen. With our estate planning department? Usually 4 to 6 weeks for a trust restructure. Madison closed her eyes. Baby Arya chose that moment to start fussing again, and Madison mechanically started the swaying motion while looking like she wanted to scream. There's something else, I said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at me. Grandma Rose called this morning. She's already planning to set up an identical fund for my future children. $50,000. The silence in that cramped office was deafening. Mrs. Peterson cleared her throat delicately. Well, that certainly adds another layer to consider. Mrs. Patterson actually mentioned that when she called about the unauthorized access, Mrs. Peterson continued, consulting her notes. She was quite concerned about fairness between her granddaughter's children. She specifically asked if we could expedite setting up a second trust. My throat tightened. Even while confused and scared about her missing money, Grandma Rose was worried about being fair to me. Madison let out a bitter laugh. So let me get this straight. Sarah stole $50,000 from my daughter because she was jealous about a name. And now, because of that theft, Grandma has to redo all her estate planning, which will delay Arya's college fund by over a month. But Sarah's hypothetical future children will still get their funds set up right on schedule. That's not, I started. Actually, it kind of is, Tom interrupted, giving me a look I'd never seen from him before. Tom, who'd always been the peacekeeper, who defended me when Madison complained about my dramatic tendencies, was staring at me like I was a stranger. Mrs. Peterson shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should focus on the immediate resolution? Mrs. Clark, are you prepared to authorize the transfer reversal? Yes, I said quickly. Absolutely. Right now. I'll need to verify some information first. She pulled up her screen. Can you confirm the password you used to access Mrs. Patterson's account? My face burned. Arya Rose 2024. Madison's sharp intake of breath was audible across the room. She used my daughter's name as the password? Mrs. Patterson set that password herself when she established the trust, Mrs. Peterson explained gently. It appears she was quite excited about her first great-grandchild. Grandma set the password to Arya Rose? Madison's voice cracked. Before she was even born? I wanted to disappear into the industrial carpeting. Madison. She was planning this for months. The college fund, the password, everything centered around my baby. And you saw that and thought, what? That you deserved it more than her actual great-granddaughter? Baby Arya started crying in earnest now, and Madison fumbled with a diaper bag one-handed while tears started streaming down her face. 3 days. I've been a mother for 3 days, and instead of enjoying my newborn, I'm sitting in a bank dealing with my sister's theft. Jake reached over and squeezed my hand, but his grip was tight, almost painful. Just reverse it, Sarah. Fix this. Mrs. Peterson walked us through the paperwork with excruciating politeness, each form a reminder of how spectacularly I destroyed my relationship with my sister. Transfer reversal authorization. Fraud prevention acknowledgement. Account closure documentation. This will take about 24 hours to process completely, she explained. Mrs. Patterson should see the funds returned to her primary account by tomorrow morning. As we signed the last form, my phone rang. Grandma rose again. I have to take this, I mumbled, stepping into the bank's lobby. Sarah, sweetheart, the strangest thing just happened. A very nice young man from the bank called to tell me about some paperwork I need to sign. Something about account security and setting up new arrangements? Her voice was thin and confused. I don't understand what went wrong with my original account. Did someone try to steal my money? I watched through the office window as Madison tried to calm her crying daughter while Tom rubbed her shoulders. My sister looked exhausted, overwhelmed, and completely done with me. Something like that, Grandma, I whispered. But it's all being fixed now. Well, I suppose these things happen with computers. I just hope this doesn't delay things for little Arya. I wanted her to have that security, you know? College is so expensive these days. When I hung up and returned to the office, Madison was packing up the diaper bag with sharp, angry movements. We're done here, she said without looking at me. The money will be back in Grandma's account tomorrow. But we're not done, Sarah. Not even close. The real confrontation happened in our driveway after we left the bank. Madison had been ominously quiet during the entire drive back, but the second Tom parked behind my car, she was out and marching toward me with baby Arya still strapped to her chest in some complicated-looking carrier. We're not done talking, she announced as Jake and I got out of our car. Madison, maybe we should go home, Tom said wearily. Let everyone cool off. Cool off? Madison whirled on him. Tom, she stole $50,000. From our grandmother. Because of a baby name. I'm not cooling off from that anytime soon. Mrs. Rodriguez's curtains twitched in her front window. Perfect. The whole neighborhood was about to get a front row seat to the Clark family meltdown. Look, I said, trying to keep my voice reasonable, the money's being returned. Grandma will have her account back by tomorrow. We can all move past this. Madison stared at me like I just suggested we sacrifice a goat in the front yard. Move past this? Sarah, you accessed our grandmother's private financial accounts without permission. You stole money meant for my 3-day-old daughter. You made an 86-year-old woman think she was losing her mind. And you think we just moved past that? It wasn't about the money, I said weakly. Then what was it about? Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like my little sister had a tantrum about not getting her way and decided to commit a felony. Jake stepped closer to me. Madison, that's not fair. Fair? Madison's voice pitched higher. You want to talk about fair? I've spent the last 3 days trying to figure out breastfeeding and diaper changes and why my daughter cries every time I put her down, and instead of having my sister support, I've been dealing with her stealing from our family. Baby Arya started fussing again, probably picking up on the tension radiating from every adult in a 10-foot radius. Madison bounced slightly, an automatic response that looked like it was already becoming second nature. I was angry, I admitted. About the name. About you not asking, not even mentioning that you were considering it. I've wanted to name my daughter Arya since we were kids, Madison. You knew that. So you decided to punish me by taking money from Grandma Rose. I wasn't thinking clearly. No, you were thinking very clearly. Madison's voice dropped to something cold and calculated. You saw an opportunity to hurt me, and you took it. Just like you've been taking things your whole life when you don't get what you want. That's not true. Really? What about when you told Mom I was the one who broke her crystal vase when we were 10? Or when you convinced Dad that I should be grounded during homecoming week because I borrowed your sweater without asking? Or when you... Those were completely different situations. Were they? Because it seems like you have a pattern of escalating minor conflicts into major drama when things don't go your way. Tom checked his watch and sighed. It's almost noon. Arya needs to eat soon, and Madison needs to rest. Can we table this for later? No, Madison said firmly. Because there's something else we need to discuss. Something I found out this morning when I was calling family members to explain why Grandma Rose was so upset. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? Madison shifted the baby carrier and pulled out her phone. I called Aunt Linda to give her a heads up about the bank situation, since Grandma might mention it to her. And Aunt Linda said something very interesting about your precious baby name. She swiped through her phone until she found what she was looking for, then turned the screen toward me. This is Aunt Linda's Facebook from 18 months ago. A post about her new neighbor's baby shower. I squinted at the small text on the screen, my blood slowly turning to ice as I read, such a lovely baby shower today for my neighbor Jessica. She's having a little girl and chose the most beautiful name Arya Rose. Same combination Linda's niece Sarah always said she wanted to use. Great minds think alike. Smiling face with hard eyes baby. The driveway seemed to tilt under my feet. Madison continued scrolling. And this one, from 3 months ago, when the neighbor's daughter started walking, little Arya Rose took her first steps today. Made me think of Sarah and how she always dreamed of having her own little Arya someday. Madison looked up from her phone, her expression unreadable. So either Aunt Linda has been psychic about my baby name choice for over a year, or maybe, just maybe, other people in this family have heard me mention liking the name Arya too. Long before Sunday's birth announcement. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not the same thing. Isn't it? Because it sounds like I've been thinking about this name just as long as you have. I just didn't announce it to the entire family when I was 15. My mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You never said anything. In 13 years, you never once mentioned wanting to use that name. Because unlike you, I don't need to announce every future plan to the entire family for validation. Madison's voice was sharp, cutting. Some of us can keep our dreams private until they're actually happening. Jake stepped forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. Wait, let me understand this. Madison, are you saying you've been planning to use the name Arya for months? Years? I'm saying, Madison said carefully, that Sarah wasn't the only person in this family who fell in love with that name. But apparently she thought she had some kind of trademark on it. Tom looked between us, clearly trying to navigate the minefield this conversation had become. Maybe we should all just... No. I found my voice, shaky but determined. If you've been thinking about it for so long, why didn't you say something when I brought it up 2 months ago? When I literally told you Jake and I were trying and joked about finally using my reserved name? Madison's laugh was bitter. Because I was trying to be considerate, Sarah. I was hoping maybe you'd change your mind, or we could work something out. But then when you kept talking about it like it was destiny, like this baby name was your birthright. She shrugged. I realized you'd never willingly share anything you thought belonged to you. That's not fair. Fair? Madison's voice rose again, causing baby Arya to flinch in her carrier. She immediately lowered her voice, swaying gently. You want to know what's not fair? I spent my entire pregnancy walking on eggshells around you. Not mentioning names I liked, not talking about nursery themes, barely sharing any excitement because I was worried about your feelings. I never asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask. It's what I've been doing our entire lives, managing your emotions, avoiding your triggers, making myself smaller so you wouldn't feel overshadowed. Madison's voice cracked. I'm 29 years old, Sarah. I just had my first baby, and I named her something beautiful that speaks to me and Tom. I shouldn't have to justify that to anyone. Mrs. Rodriguez's front door opened, and she stepped onto her porch with a watering can, clearly eavesdropping while pretending to tend her plants. Madison noticed and lowered her voice. Here's what's going to happen, she said quietly. You're going to call Grandma Rose personally and explain exactly what you did and why. Not some vague story about banking mix-ups, the truth. That you accessed her private accounts without permission because you were angry about my baby's name. My heart hammered. Madison, she's already confused about what happened. If I tell her I deliberately. She deserves to know the truth. And then you're going to figure out how to make this right with her, because what you did wasn't just stealing from me. You violated her trust, scared her, and made her question her own mental capacity. Jake touched my arm. Madison's right, Sarah. Grandma Rose deserves an honest explanation. I stared at my husband, feeling completely abandoned. You're taking her side? I'm not taking sides. I'm saying that what you did was wrong on multiple levels, and pretending it was just a banking error isn't going to fix the real damage here. Madison adjusted the baby carrier, preparing to leave. One more thing. I don't want you around Arya until you get help. What do you mean, help? Therapy, Sarah. Professional help. Because stealing $50,000 from your grandmother over a baby name isn't normal sibling rivalry. It's something much more serious, and I won't expose my daughter to that kind of instability. The words hit like a slap. You can't ban me from seeing my niece. I can, and I am. Until you can prove you've addressed whatever made you think felony theft was an appropriate response to disappointment. Madison turned toward Tom's car. Call Grandma Rose by tonight, Sarah. Tell her the truth. Or I will. As they drove away, I stood in my driveway feeling like my entire world had shifted off its axis. My sister thought I was mentally unstable. My husband was looking at me like he didn't recognize the woman he married. And in 6 hours, I had to call my grandmother and confess to the worst thing I'd ever done. The worst part? I was starting to think Madison might be right about everything. That evening, I sat in my car outside Grandma Rose's assisted living facility, staring at the cheerful yellow building and trying to work up the courage to go inside. Jake had offered to come with me, but this was something I needed to do alone. The call hadn't gone well. When I'd finally dialed her number at 6:30 p.m., Grandma Rose had answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting by the phone. Sarah, sweetheart. I was hoping you'd call. I'm still so confused about this bank business. Grandma, that's actually why I'm calling. I need to explain what really happened with your account. Oh good, because a nice man from the bank said some very complicated things about authorization and security, and I just couldn't follow it all. I'd taken a deep breath and done exactly what Madison demanded, told her the complete truth. That I'd used her login information to transfer the money to my own account because I was angry about baby Arya's name. That she hadn't done anything wrong or forgotten anything. That I had deliberately accessed her private finances without permission. The silence that followed lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Grandma? Are you there? I'm here, dear. Her voice had changed, become smaller somehow. I'm just trying to understand. You took the money I saved for Madison's children because you didn't like the baby's name? It's more complicated than that. Is it? The disappointment in her voice was devastating. Sarah, that money. I worked extra shifts at the diner for 3 years to save that much. I sold your grandfather's car collection, his tools, things I wanted to keep just to have something left of him. I did all of that so Madison's children could have opportunities we never had. My throat had closed up completely. I'd managed to choke out, I know. I'm sorry. I need some time to think about this, she'd said quietly. I'll talk to you later, sweetheart. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in our kitchen while Jake watched from the doorway with an expression I couldn't read. Now, 3 hours later, I was sitting in the parking lot of Sunset Manor because thinking about Grandma Rose being disappointed and confused in her little apartment was worse than facing her anger directly. The lobby smelled like disinfectant and cafeteria food, with undertones of the industrial carpet cleaner they used every Thursday. Margaret, the evening receptionist, looked up from her romance novel and smiled. Sarah. Here to see your grandmother? She mentioned you might be stopping by. Is she? How is she? Margaret's expression shifted slightly. A little out of sorts today, honestly. She seemed upset about something earlier. Wouldn't come down for bingo night, which isn't like her at all. My stomach twisted as I rode the elevator to the 3rd floor. Grandma Rose's apartment was at the end of the hall, 3C, with the cheerful sunflower wreath she'd insisted on hanging despite the facility's decoration policies. I knocked softly. Grandma? It's Sarah. Come in, dear. It's open. She was sitting in her favorite armchair, the blue recliner that had somehow made the transition from her house to this smaller space. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she was still wearing the floral house dress she probably put on this morning before the world exploded. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said without looking up. Of course I came. I needed to see you, to explain. Sit down, Sarah. I perched on the edge of her small sofa, the one covered in the same fabric as the curtains she'd sewn herself 40 years ago. The apartment felt like a condensed version of all my childhood memories, her recipe box on the kitchen counter, framed photos of our family covering every surface, the smell of her lavender soap. I've been thinking about our conversation, Grandma Rose said finally. Trying to understand how my granddaughter could do something so disappointing. The word hit harder than any anger could have. Disappointing. Not cruel or wrong or shocking, just deeply, profoundly disappointing. I was hurt, I said weakly. About the name. I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but... Sarah. She held up one weathered hand. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. I nodded, not trusting my voice. When your grandfather died 5 years ago, I had to make a lot of difficult decisions about money and the future. I could have spent his life insurance on myself, made my life here more comfortable, maybe moved to one of those fancy places with the pools and the organized trips. She gestured around her small apartment, with its basic furniture and single window overlooking the parking lot. Instead, I chose to save that money for my great-grandchildren. Children I might never live to see graduate high school, let alone college. I did that because I believe in investing in the future, in giving the next generation better opportunities than we had. My eyes were burning, but I didn't dare interrupt. That password you used, Aria Rose 2024, I set that up the day Madison told me she'd chosen the name. Not because it was special to her, Sarah. Because it was special to you. The words hit me like ice water. What? Madison told me you'd always loved that name. That it meant something important to you, and she hoped you wouldn't be too upset that she'd fallen in love with it too. Grandma Rose finally looked at me, her pale blue eyes sharp despite her 86 years. She asked me not to mention it to you until after the baby was born, because she wanted to tell you herself. The room tilted around me. What? She was worried about your feelings, dear. She said she'd been thinking about the name for months but knew you'd always talked about using it someday. She even asked if I thought she should choose something else. I couldn't breathe. What did you tell her? Grandma Rose's smile was sad. I told her that love isn't diminished by sharing it. That maybe having 2 little girls in our family with beautiful names would be twice the blessing. The magnitude of what I'd done crashed over me like a tsunami. Madison hadn't stolen my name out of spite or cruelty. She'd agonized over it, worried about my feelings, tried to find a way to honor what the name meant to both of us. And I'd responded by stealing her daughter's college fund. I need to fix this, I whispered. Yes, Grandma Rose said simply. You do. The revelation about Madison's consideration for my feelings should have made me feel better. Instead, it made everything infinitely worse. I spent the rest of Tuesday night lying awake, staring at the ceiling while Jake slept fitfully beside me, his back turned in a way that felt deliberately distant. By Wednesday morning, I'd made a decision that probably qualified as my second worst idea of the week. I was going to fix this properly. Not just return the money, not just apologize, I was going to make it right in a way that actually mattered. The problem was, my definition of fixing it apparently differed significantly from everyone else's. Jake left for work early, kissing my forehead with a kind of mechanical affection that meant he was still processing what his wife had become. Call Dr. Martinez today, he said quietly, referring to our family doctor. Ask about therapist recommendations. I nodded and promised I would, then spent exactly 0 minutes looking up therapists and 3 hours researching estate planning attorneys. If Grandma Rose's trust needed to be completely restructured because of my unauthorized access, and if that process was going to take 4 to 6 weeks, then maybe there was a way to speed things up. Maybe I could pay for expedited legal services, or set up a temporary fund to bridge the gap, or find some other solution that would fix the timeline I destroyed. At 11:30 a.m., I found myself sitting in the reception area of Davidson, Miller and Associates, waiting to meet with Patricia Davidson herself, the most expensive estate planning attorney in the city. The consultation fee alone was $400, which I'd put on our credit card without mentioning it to Jake. Mrs. Clark? The receptionist, a woman about my age with perfectly straight blonde hair, looked up from her computer. Ms. Davidson will see you now. Patricia Davidson's office screamed success, floor-to-ceiling law books, a massive mahogany desk, and windows overlooking the downtown district. She was probably in her 50s, wearing a navy suit that cost more than my car payment. Please, sit, she said, gesturing to one of the leather chairs across from her desk. I understand you have some questions about trust administration? I launched into the whole story, Grandma Rose's educational trust, the unauthorized access, the bank's security protocols requiring a complete restructure. I left out the part about baby names and focused on the technical aspects, trying to sound like a concerned granddaughter dealing with an unfortunate misunderstanding. Ms. Davidson listened with the kind of professional attention that I was definitely paying for, occasionally taking notes on a yellow legal pad. So your question is whether this timeline can be accelerated, she asked when I finished. Exactly. The beneficiary is a 3-day-old baby, and her great-grandmother is 86. If something happened to my grandmother during those 4 to 6 weeks. I understand your concern. The good news is that yes, we can absolutely expedite this process. I work with First National Bank regularly, and their estate planning department is quite efficient when properly motivated. Relief flooded through me. What would that involve? For expedited service, we're looking at approximately $8,000 in legal fees, plus court filing costs. I could have the new trust established within 10 business days. My relief evaporated. $8,000? Trust restructuring is complex, Mrs. Clark, especially when we're dealing with security breaches and beneficiary verification. There's also the matter of ensuring this new trust is bulletproof against future unauthorized access. I thought about our savings account, the one Jake and I had been building toward our own future children, our house down payment fund, our carefully planned financial timeline. $8,000 would wipe out 4 months of saving. But it would fix what I'd broken. What if I wanted to set up an additional trust as well? I heard myself asking. Something identical for future beneficiaries? Ms. Davidson's eyebrows rose slightly. You're looking at establishing 2 trusts simultaneously? My grandmother mentioned wanting to create something similar for my future children. If we're already going through this process, that would be approximately $12,000 total, given the overlap in documentation and filing. $12,000. Our entire emergency fund plus some creative credit card usage. How quickly could you start? I could have my paralegal begin the paperwork this afternoon if you're prepared to put down a retainer. Say, $5,000 to get the process moving? I thought about Jake's face when he discovered I'd spent our emergency fund on expedited legal services without consulting him. I thought about Madison feeding baby Aria at 2 a.m., not knowing if her daughter's college fund would be accessible anytime soon. I thought about Grandma Rose, confused and disappointed in her small apartment. I'll need to discuss this with my husband, I said finally. Ms. Davidson handed me her business card. Of course. But don't wait too long if you want expedited service. My calendar fills up quickly, and bank delays only get worse with time. I drove home in a daze, Ms. Davidson's card burning a hole in my purse. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd convinced myself this was the perfect solution. Yes, it was expensive, but it would prove to everyone that I was serious about making amends. It was concrete action, not just empty apologies. Jake's car was already in the garage when I got home at 3:15 p.m. He never came home early. I found him sitting at our kitchen table with his laptop open and a stack of bank statements spread across the surface. Our bank statements, with yesterday's transactions highlighted in yellow. "We need to talk," he said without looking up. My stomach dropped as I saw the highlighted line, Patricia Davidson and Associates legal consultation, $400, 2:47 p.m. "You went to see an estate planning attorney," Jake said, still staring at the laptop screen. "For hours after promising me you'd look into therapy." I set my purse down carefully, buying time. "I can explain." "I'm sure you can. Just like you explained the bank transfer that I had to find out about from your sister screaming on our front porch." He finally looked up, and the expression on his face made my chest tight. "What exactly were you consulting about, Sarah?" "I was trying to fix the timeline issue. The bank said it would take 4 to 6 weeks to restructure Grandma's trust, and I thought maybe." "How much?" "What? How much did this brilliant fix cost?" Jake's voice was dangerously quiet. "Because I'm looking at our savings account, and I'm seeing some concerning patterns in your spending over the last 2 days." I hadn't realized he'd noticed the credit card charges. The gas station flowers I'd bought for the hospital visit, the $50 I'd spent on baby clothes for Aria before I knew about the name, the consultation fee. She said she could expedite the process for $8,000. Maybe $12,000 if we set up the trust for our future kids at the same time. Jake closed the laptop very slowly. $12,000. It would fix everything, Jake. Grandma wouldn't have to wait, Aria's fund would be secure, and we'd already have our children's education taken care of. With what money? His voice cracked slightly. "Sarah, we have $9,000 in savings. That's it. That's our emergency fund, our house down payment, our entire financial safety net. We could use credit cards for the difference." "Stop." Jake held up his hand. "Just stop talking for a minute and listen to yourself. You want to spend our entire savings account plus go into debt to fix a problem you created by stealing money from your grandmother." When you put it like that, it sounded insane. But in my mind, it had made perfect sense. It was taking responsibility, showing commitment to making things right. "It's an investment in our family's future," I said weakly. Jake laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Our family? Sarah, at this rate we won't have a family. We won't have a marriage. You've lost your mind over a baby name, and instead of getting help, you're doubling down on increasingly expensive mistakes." My phone rang before I could respond. Mom's contact photo filled the screen, that picture from last Christmas where she's wearing the ridiculous reindeer sweater Dad got her. "Don't answer it," Jake said. But I was already swiping to accept, desperate for any distraction from this conversation. "Sarah Elizabeth, your father and I just got to Madison's house, and we need to have a serious family discussion. Right now." My heart sank. "Mom, I can explain." "Oh, you're going to explain plenty. We'll be at your house in 20 minutes. And Sarah? Your father wanted to call the police about what you did." I talked him out of it, but barely. "So you better have some very good explanations ready." She hung up before I could respond. Jake was watching me with something that looked like pity. "Your parents know." Madison told them. I sank into the chair across from him. "They're coming over." "Good. Maybe they can talk some sense into you, because I'm clearly failing at that." He reopened the laptop and stared at our banking information. "Sarah, I need you to promise me something right now. Promise me you won't spend another penny trying to fix this situation without talking to me first." Through our front window, I could see Mrs. Rodriguez watering her plants again, probably positioning herself for optimal eavesdropping when my parents arrived. "I promise," I whispered, knowing that in 20 minutes, our private disaster was about to become a full-scale family intervention. 20 minutes turned into 17 minutes, because of course my parents made record time when they were furious. I watched through the kitchen window as Dad's silver Honda pulled into our driveway with a kind of aggressive precision that meant he'd been rehearsing angry speeches for the entire 4-hour drive from Phoenix. Mom emerged from the passenger seat wearing her serious conversation outfit, the navy blazer she usually reserved for parent-teacher conferences and doctor appointments. Dad was in his weekend khakis, which somehow made everything worse. He'd interrupted his Saturday routine of yard work and baseball games to drive here and confront his criminal daughter. They didn't knock. Mom has had a key to our house since we bought it 3 years ago, and apparently stealing from elderly relatives was serious enough to warrant using it. "Sarah? Jake? We're here," Mom called from the entryway, her voice carrying that particular tone that meant someone was about to get the lecture of their lifetime. Jake shot me a look that said, "You're on your own," and went to greet them. I stayed frozen in my kitchen chair, listening to the murmur of voices and Dad's heavy footsteps approaching. When they entered the kitchen, Dad looked older than I remembered. The stress lines around his eyes seemed deeper, and his usually neat hair was rumpled like he'd been running his hands through it during the drive. "Sit down, Sarah," Mom said, settling into the chair beside Jake. "We need to understand what happened here." Dad remained standing, arms crossed, staring at me like I was a particularly disappointing stranger. "Madison told us everything. The money, the bank account, all of it. What I don't understand is why." I tried to explain to Madison. "Forget Madison for a minute," Mom interrupted. "Explain it to us. Explain to your parents why you thought stealing from your grandmother was an acceptable response to being upset about a baby name." The words hung in the air like a challenge. When she put it that way, stripped of all context and emotion, it sounded absolutely insane. "It wasn't about the money," I started, then immediately realized how ridiculous that sounded. I mean, I wasn't trying to keep it. I was angry, and I saw an opportunity to. "I don't know. Make a point." Dad's expression darkened. "Make a point? Sarah, you committed fraud. Against your own family. Do you understand the legal implications of what you did? The bank said they won't press charges if." "That's not the point." Dad's voice rose, causing Jake to flinch slightly. "The point is that my daughter thought it was acceptable to access someone else's financial accounts without permission. To steal money. To make an elderly woman think she was losing her memory." Mom leaned forward, her expression softer but somehow more devastating than Dad's anger. "Sweetheart, we're worried about you. This isn't normal behavior, even for someone who's upset. Have you been under stress? Problems at work? Issues we don't know about? I glanced at Jake, who was studying his hands with intense focus. He hadn't told them about the lawyer consultation or my plan to spend our entire savings account. Yet. I've been frustrated, I admitted. About the trying to conceive process, about feeling like Madison always gets everything first, about. I trailed off, realizing how petty it all sounded. About what, exactly? Dad asked, his voice sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, you have a good job, a loving husband, a nice house, and a family who cares about you. What exactly does Madison have that you don't? A baby, I whispered. She has a baby. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face crumpled slightly, and even Dad's rigid posture softened a fraction. Oh, honey, Mom said quietly. Is that what this is really about? You and Jake having trouble conceiving? Jake cleared his throat. We've only been trying for 2 months. Sarah's doctor said everything looks normal, but Madison got pregnant accidentally, I finished. And she gets to name her daughter the name I've been planning for 13 years. And everyone acts like that's perfectly fine, like I should just be happy for her and move on. Dad pulled out the chair across from me and sat down heavily. Sarah, being disappointed about a name doesn't justify what you did to Grandma Rose. I know that. I know it was wrong. But everyone keeps acting like Madison's completely innocent here, like she had no idea how I'd feel about the name choice. Mom exchanged a look with Dad that I couldn't interpret. What do you mean? She knew, Mom. She absolutely knew how much that name meant to me, and she chose it anyway. Without even mentioning she was considering it. Another loaded silence passed between my parents. Finally, Mom spoke. Sarah, there's something you need to know about Madison's name choice. Something she asked us not to tell you. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? She called us 3 months ago, crying, Dad said quietly. She'd fallen in love with the name Arya, but she was torn because she knew how important it was to you. She asked our advice about whether she should choose something else. The kitchen floor seemed to drop out from under me. What did you tell her? We told her, Mom said gently, that names don't belong to anyone. That if she truly loved it, she should use it, and we'd help work things out with you afterward. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. You encouraged her to take it? We encouraged her to name her daughter something that felt right, Dad corrected. Just like we'd encourage you to do the same when your time comes. I stared at my parents, these people who were supposed to be on my side, who were supposed to understand, and realized that everyone in my family had been working against me. So this was all planned, I said numbly. Madison, you, Grandma Rose, everyone knew she was going to use my name, and you all decided not to tell me. Jake reached across the table toward me. Sarah, that's not what they're saying. Isn't it? I pulled my hand away from his. Madison knew exactly what she was doing, and instead of having an honest conversation with me, she went behind my back to get permission from everyone else first. Mom's face was pained. Sweetheart, she was trying to be considerate. Considerate would have been talking to me directly. Considerate would have been finding a different name. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Instead, she manipulated the whole family into supporting her decision so I'd look like the unreasonable one when I got upset. That's not what happened, Dad said firmly. But I was done listening to explanations that made me the villain in every version of this story. That's exactly what happened, I said, my voice rising. And now everyone's acting shocked that I'm upset about being completely excluded from a decision that affected something I've cared about for over a decade. Mom stood up, her maternal instincts kicking in. Sarah, please sit down. Let's talk through this calmly. Calmly? I laughed, and it came out bitter and sharp. I've been calm for 13 years while Madison got everything she wanted. I was calm when she got the scholarship I applied for. I was calm when she married Tom 2 months after I started dating Jake, making me rush our timeline so I wouldn't look like I was copying her. I've been calm through every single thing she's taken from me, and look where it got me. Jake's head snapped up. Wait, what do you mean about our timeline? The words had slipped out before I could stop them. My parents were staring at me, and Jake looked like I'd just revealed I was an alien. Nothing, I said quickly. I just meant. Sarah. Jake's voice was dangerously quiet. Did you push for us to get married because Madison was getting married? My throat closed up. This conversation was spiraling into territory I'd never meant to explore, secrets I'd kept buried for 3 years. That's not. It's more complicated than that. Jesus Christ, Jake breathed. What else haven't you told me? Dad cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the immediate situation. No, Jake interrupted, something I'd never seen him do to my father. I think I need to understand exactly who I married. He turned to face me fully. Sarah, did you rush our engagement because you were competing with your sister? The kitchen felt like it was shrinking around me. 4 pairs of eyes, all waiting for an answer to a question I'd never wanted to face honestly. I loved you, I said desperately. I love you. Madison getting engaged just made me realize I didn't want to wait anymore. That's not what I asked. My phone buzzed on the counter, Madison's name flashing across the screen. Without thinking, I grabbed it. What? I snapped into the phone. Sarah, we have a problem. Madison's voice was tight with panic. I just got off the phone with Grandma Rose's facility. She's in the hospital. The world stopped spinning. What happened? She fell in her apartment around 4 o'clock. They think she might have broken her hip. Madison's voice cracked. She was trying to reach something on a high shelf and lost her balance. Sarah, she's 86 years old. Hip fractures at her age. Everyone was watching me, reading my expression. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Which hospital? I whispered. St. Mary's. Tom and I are heading there now. Madison paused. You should come. Despite everything that's happened between us, she's been asking for you. Madison, is she? How serious is it? They won't know until they run more tests, but the paramedic said. Her voice broke completely. Sarah, they said falls like this can be really dangerous for someone her age. Something about surgery risks and complications. My legs gave out, and I sank back into my chair. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Sarah? Madison's voice was smaller now, vulnerable. I know we're not okay right now, but Grandma doesn't know about our fight. She doesn't need to know. Can we be sisters today? For her? I looked around the kitchen at my family, my parents, whose disappointment was written all over their faces, Jake, who was staring at me like he was seeing me clearly for the first time, my sister on the phone, asking me to put aside our war for our grandmother's sake. Of course, I managed. We'll be sisters. After I hung up, the silence stretched until Dad finally spoke. We all go, he said simply. Whatever's happening between all of you stops now. That woman raised us after your grandfather died, and she doesn't deserve to spend what might be. He couldn't finish the sentence. As we gathered our things to leave for the hospital, I caught Jake's reflection in the hallway mirror. His face was set in hard lines I'd never seen before, and I realized that even if Grandma Rose was okay, nothing else in my life was ever going to be the same. The reckoning I'd been avoiding was coming, and there was nowhere left to hide. St. Mary's Hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. We'd been sitting in the surgical waiting room for 3 hours while doctors worked to repair Grandma Rose's shattered hip, and the silence between my family members had become its own living thing. Madison sat across from me, still wearing yesterday's clothes, with baby Arya sleeping against her chest in that complicated carrier. Every few minutes, she'd check her phone for updates from the surgical team, her face growing more drawn with each passing hour. Mom and Dad flanked me like prison guards, while Jake sat one seat away, close enough to maintain appearances, far enough to make his feelings clear. The conversation in our kitchen felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been 4 hours since Madison's call shattered everything. At 9:47 p.m., Dr. Richardson emerged from the surgical doors still wearing scrubs, his expression carefully neutral in that way doctors perfect when delivering news that could go either way. The Patterson family? We all stood as one unit, temporarily forgetting our fractures. The surgery went well, he said, and the collective exhale was audible. We were able to repair the fracture, and Mrs. Patterson tolerated the anesthesia better than expected for someone her age. Madison's knees buckled slightly, and Tom caught her elbow. She's okay? She's stable. Recovery will be lengthy, probably 6 to 8 weeks before she's mobile again, and she'll need significant physical therapy. But yes, she should make a full recovery. Relief flooded through me so intensely that I had to sit back down. Grandma Rose was going to be okay. Despite everything I'd done, despite the stress and confusion I'd caused her, she was going to survive this. Can we see her? Dad asked. She's in recovery now, but you can visit briefly once she's moved to her room. That should be within the hour. Dr. Richardson paused. I should mention, she's been asking specifically for Sarah. She seems quite concerned about something involving banks and money. The relief curdled in my stomach. Even heavily medicated after major surgery, Grandma Rose was still worried about the mess I'd created. I'll talk to her, I said quietly. Dr. Richardson nodded and headed back toward the surgical unit, leaving us in our artificial bubble of temporary peace. Madison was the first to break it. This has to stop, Sarah. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried clearly in the empty waiting room. Look what we've become. We're sitting in a hospital fighting about money and baby names while our grandmother recovers from surgery. I know, I whispered back. Do you? Because I don't think you understand what you've done to our family. Madison shifted Arya to her other arm, the movement automatic now. It's not just the money, Sarah. It's the lying, the sneaking around, the complete disregard for everyone else's feelings. Mom cleared her throat softly. Madison, maybe this isn't the time. When is the time, Mom? When Sarah does something even worse because we keep enabling her? Madison's eyes never left my face. She stole from an elderly woman. Our grandmother. And instead of truly taking responsibility, she spent today trying to fix it by spending $12,000 of Jake's money without telling him. Jake's head whipped toward me. 12,000? I thought you said the consultation was just to explore options. The walls felt like they were closing in. I wasn't going to do anything without discussing it with you. You put down a consultation fee without discussing it with me, Jake said, his voice deadly calm. You accessed your grandmother's bank accounts without discussing it with anyone. Forgive me if I don't trust your version of discussion anymore. A nurse appeared at the edge of our group, looking apologetic for interrupting what was clearly a family crisis. The Patterson family? Mrs. Rose is awake and asking for you. Room 314. We rode the elevator in crushing silence, each of us lost in our own version of what we'd say to the woman who'd raised us, loved us, and definitely didn't deserve any of this drama. Grandma Rose looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, her silver hair spread across the white pillowcase like spun glass. The 4 in her hand made her seem fragile in a way I'd never noticed before. There are my girls, she said softly, her voice hoarse from the breathing tube. Her eyes found mine immediately. Sarah, sweetheart, come here. I approached the bed reluctantly, hyper-aware of my family watching every interaction. I've been thinking about our conversation, Grandma Rose said, patting the space beside her bed. About the money and the accounts and all that confusion. Grandma, you should rest. We can talk about this later. No, dear. I need to say this now, while my mind is clear. She looked past me to Madison, then back to my face. I may be old, Sarah, but I'm not blind. I know you girls have been having problems, and I know my college fund somehow got caught in the middle. Madison stepped closer, still holding Arya. Grandma, Sarah explained everything. The money is being returned, and we're working everything out. Grandma Rose studied Madison's face, then mine, with a sharp intelligence that hadn't dimmed despite her 86 years. Are you working it out? Because you both look like you'd rather be anywhere else than in the same room. The silence stretched until I couldn't bear it anymore. It's my fault, Grandma. All of it. I was jealous and angry, and I took it out on everyone else. The words tumbled out in a rush. Madison didn't do anything wrong. She named her baby something beautiful, and instead of being happy for her, I made it about me. Sarah, Madison started. No, let me finish. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, for the first time in days. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, trying to navigate new motherhood while dealing with my breakdown. You tried to be considerate about the name. You asked Mom and Dad for advice, you worried about my feelings, and I repaid that by acting like a spoiled child. Grandma Rose's weathered hand found mine. That's a start, dear. But what are you going to do about it? The question hung in the air like a challenge. What was I going to do about it? Return the money, already in progress. Apologize, words everyone had heard before. Get therapy, something I should have done months ago. But there was something else, something bigger that needed to happen. I'm going to drop the expedited trust process, I said, the words surprising even me. Let the bank handle the restructuring on their normal timeline. And I'm going to pay for a family vacation once you're recovered, somewhere all of us can go together and remember why we love each other. Jake shifted beside me. Sarah, we can't afford. We can afford it more than we can afford to lose each other, I interrupted, then turned to Madison. And I want to do something for Arya. Not to make up for what I did, but because she's my niece and she deserves to know her aunt isn't completely insane. Madison's expression was unreadable. What did you have in mind? I took a deep breath, knowing this was either the first step toward healing or the final nail in our relationship's coffin. I want to start a separate education fund for her. Not to replace Grandma's, that's hers and always was. But something additional, something that grows over the next 18 years. I looked at Jake, knowing I was about to commit us to something huge without permission again, but also knowing it was the right thing to do. $100 a month, every month, until she graduates high school. The math was staggering, over $20,000 by the time Arya turned 18. Money we'd planned to save for our own children's future. Sarah, Jake said quietly, we should discuss this privately. No. I turned to face him fully. I've spent too much time making decisions privately, trying to control outcomes without considering how they'd affect anyone else. This is me asking, in front of everyone, if you'd support this decision. Jake stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him calculating not just the financial impact, but what this gesture meant for our marriage, our future, our ability to trust each other again. 100 a month, he said finally. 100 a month. For 18 years. For 18 years. Jake looked at baby Arya, sleeping peacefully against Madison's chest, completely unaware that her existence had nearly destroyed our family. Okay, he